Hi everybody, it's Mariana with Three Peaks Classroom. First of all, if you're new here, hi and welcome. I am a grade 3 and grade 4 teacher here in Alberta, Canada. I have a master's degree in elementary education, and my focus was, during my master's, my focus was on language arts instruction with also inquiry-based education. On my channel, Three Peaks Classroom, I love to share tons of helpful tips and resources like book recommendation, game recommendations, or lesson ideas, activities, all of that, basically anything to help you teach in your classroom. Last week on my channel, I shared with you my phonics schedule in my grade 3 or my grade 4 classroom, and it always starts with a vocab lesson every Monday morning with my 5 new word wall words. If you want to catch that episode, I'm going to link it down below so you can watch that as well. If you're interested in seeing how I lay out my entire language arts schedule, so how I cover reading strategies, writing strategies, grammar, phonics, daily 5, all of that. If you're interested in how I laid it out in my own classroom, you can head over to my website at threepeaksclassroom.com/ELA schedule. And there you just enter your email and you will be able to receive this free schedule. This is the tried and true schedule that I use in my own classroom, and it lays it down every day of the week. So Mondays, this is what I do in language arts. It tells you how much time it takes me. It tells you the task that the kids do, and it also tells you some notes on if you want to implement it in your classroom as well. These are just some notes about the activity. So that's threepeaksclassroom.com/ELA schedule. Now, in my ELA schedule, if you flip to Wednesdays, on Wednesdays for 30 minutes, we play a game called The Word is Right. And this is an adaptation from a game that I use from my beloved phonics resource. I use this phonics resource extensively in my grade 3 and my grade 4 classroom. I know it says grade 3, but I use it for both grades because I just love all of the activities that they have listed in here. I've recommended this time and time and time again. I wish I had like an affiliate link to this, but I don't. I will still recommend this resource because it's amazing. So the activity in this book is called Using Words That You Know, and I've adapted that activity to make it kind of like a whole group engaging lesson with my kids, and we make it into a game show, and the game is called The Word is Right. Now this game is basically a sorting activity, which I'm sure many of you guys already do in your classrooms, either in a small group setting, whole group setting, or maybe you do like individual or partner work. But I'm going to go into detail about how I do this activity specifically in my classroom and the benefits that I see when I do this lesson with my kids. Every Wednesday morning after we've done attendance and agendas and we've checked all of that, the very first lesson that I do with my kids is this activity for the first 30 minutes of the day. And like I mentioned, the game is called The Word is Right. It's a sorting game that gets progressively more difficult, building on the skills and the knowledge that the kids are gaining from the beginning of the lesson. So first, everybody takes out their word work notebooks. This is the same notebook that the kids use on Mondays when we do our word wall words. This is the same notebook. I ask them to open up to a new section. It does not need to be a new page. I just tell them a new section, and they write the date, and they copy the chart that's on the board. They copy it down in their book. So for example, I flipped to a random page in my phonics resource, and this is the chart that they had. So this lesson focuses on our controlled words. So we have dark, her, girl, horn, and hurt. Once the kids have written down this chart, the very first thing I do is I ask them, what do you notice about these words? And there's no wrong answer. They might say something like, 4 out of the 5 words have 4 letters and 1 word only has 3 letters. And I'll say, oh, good observation. There's nothing incorrect here when they notice something. But I'm hoping that through the repetition of this activity, we do it every Wednesday, I want them to recognize that each word always has a different vowel. This one always has an A, E, I, O, and U, always, every time we do this activity. Then I ask the kids to focus a little bit more on the guiding words at the top, and they'll notice the vowels, but I'll also point out the onset and the rhyme. And so I'll tell them that as we do this sorting activity, any words that have the rhyme arc should go in this column. So dark rhymes with arc, rhymes with park, rhymes with whatever. So that will be in this column. Here, they should listen to the words that have a sound. This one is Earl, this one's Orn, and this one's Ert. So there, I've underlined them. I asked the kids as well to highlight them with their highlighters, and that way they are listening very carefully for that, the pattern, the rhyming pattern. The way this game is played is you have your chart, and this game is played in 4 stages. I do stages 1 and 2 on the first Wednesday, and then the following week we will come back and revisit this chart, and we will do stages 3 and 4. So stage 1 is kids are reading a word on an index card. They are reading the word, and they have to read it out loud, and they need to figure out which column does this word belong in. They have to notice the spelling pattern. So the goal is here for them to notice the URT. So sp, ert, spurt. Spurt sounds like hurt. And then, I mean, this is a smaller version of my whiteboard, but they would take this card and they would physically go up to the whiteboard and they would tape it under the column hurt. And then the rest of the class would would write the word down in their own books, and they would write spurt down this column. So the second stage then is they're listening to a word that the teacher says out loud, and then using their knowledge of what they've heard and their chart, they need to spell the word in the correct column. So for example, a word that I might say out loud is born. Born. So using the words here, they have to figure out that born sounds like horn, and if they get rid of the H and replace it with a B, born belongs in this column. So stage 1 is reading easier words and sorting them. Stage 2 is listening and spelling. Stage 3 is reading harder, more difficult words. So for example, we have newborn, or they might have offer. And the last one I wrote down was birthmark. So again, they're reading these words. They have this paper in front of them, and the goal again is for them to recognize the spelling pattern here, the rhyme at the end. So birthmark sounds like park, sounds like dark, so that goes down in this column. And stage 4 is listening to longer words to spell, and they have to figure out what column it goes under, and they have to spell the word. So examples of longer words are popcorn, unicorn, trademark, remark, ballpark. There's a bunch that they have listed here in the activity book. Now, the actual activity in this book is called Using Words That You Know, but the reason why I've dubbed it The Word is Right is because this came about in my class last year, and the kids and I have adapted it to make it a game. And I'm going to explain to you the history behind that and why I'm never going to go back. So last year, my students had an incredibly low confidence in themselves. My fabulous EA that I got to work with before I went on mat leave, she worked with these kiddos since they were in grade 1. So she knew them really well. And she told me that she doesn't see any confidence in them. Now, whether that's because of the coronavirus or whether that is this particular group of individual students, who knows? But at the end of the day, she's told me that these kids do not have any confidence in themselves. And they are afraid of even trying because they're afraid of making a mistake. So knowing that, I knew that I had to work with my kids to slowly build up their confidence, to teach them that it's okay to make mistakes. And of course, this is something that we all teach in our classrooms, but this group of kids particularly needed that kind of reassurance. So this game did a perfect job of encapsulating that idea. We're working on phonics, we're learning spelling patterns, but at the same time, I'm working with my kids, instilling that confidence and teaching them that it's okay if you get it in the wrong column or whatever. We're gonna work through it. We're gonna get there together, right? I would use my popsicle sticks with all the students' names, and I would call up one student at a time. And it was incredible. At the beginning of the year, there were tons of students that were like cowering because they did not want to be called. But before I left on mat leave, students were eager. They would have their hands up, pick me, pick me. And so I knew that this process worked. And when I called up a student, so let's say I called up Johnny, I would encourage and ask the class to cheer on Johnny because it's a brave thing to get up in front of the class and to try, and you might make a mistake, that's okay, but it takes a lot of courage and bravery to do that. So while Johnny's walking up to the class, I'm using my game show voice and I'm saying, all right, Johnny, you're next to come on down to play. The word is right. You know, make it fun that way. The rest of the kids were cheering him on like they would in the Price is Right game, and Johnny would be standing at the front of the class. Like I said, stage one is they are looking at the word and they're trying to sort it. If Johnny got the word correct and put it in the right column, we would all applause and say, good job, Johnny, you did it, excellent. But if Johnny made a mistake, this is where, again, that confidence building would happen. And if Johnny, let's say, put spurt in, I don't know, a different column, then I would say things like, oh, I see how your brain was thinking there. Oh yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, that's really smart thinking. Let's try noticing the way that it is written here. Or do you notice the vowel here? Does that give you a clue? I would say comments like that, and then eventually we would work our way towards Johnny getting the correct word in the correct column. And again, the students would applaud and cheer. If they noticed that, let's say a student came up to the class and the student was hesitant, like they were standing there and they weren't sure where to put this word and they're really not sure, then I would kind of encourage the kids like this, and the students behind him would say things like, you got this, yeah, like take a look at the words, or they would do the encouraging as well. So it wasn't just coming from me, but it was coming from their peers. I can tell you from my short 3 months that I worked with these kids before I went on a mat leave that their confidence literally went from nothing, from zero, to hero. They were looking forward to having their names called. They weren't afraid to make a mistake because they knew that they could correct it, and they knew that their friends would help them and their friends would still cheer them on. And at the end of the day, we would all be working together to fill this chart out anyway. So I can tell you that this game did wonders in improving their confidence and improving their desire to try and spell those harder words. Now, the second piece of this is, you don't have to do this at all, but I turned it into a game show, but I also turned it into a friendly competition. And again, you have to judge your students whether or not this is appropriate for your kiddos, but my kiddos, I felt like because they have the confidence now to race, and it's okay if they make a mistake, you know, but try. Once we had this game down pat, I turned this into a fun, friendly race. The way that I turned it into a race is, let's say I call another student and they're coming down. I have the word hidden. So remember, I'm standing next to the whiteboard. I have the word hidden. And the first stage is reading the word and sorting it. And basically, the student at the front of the class was racing their peers that were sitting behind them. And what I would do is I would really quickly show the rest of the class like this, very quickly. And I would finish with the student that was up at the whiteboard. And that student, all they had to do was really quickly press the word somewhere on the whiteboard. And the other students, they had to point in their notebooks which column they think it belongs in. And so they're kind of racing each other. And I told them, you know, in the end, we're all winners because we're all filling out our chart. But it was just a fun, friendly way for them to race against each other. Now, you absolutely don't need to do that. You don't need to turn it into a race at all. But the reason why I did it was just to have a little bit more fun with my kids. I knew my kids were becoming a lot more confident in themselves. And so I thought it would be appropriate for us to do that. But also, turning it into a race meant that I want my kids to be able to make this skill of being able to recognize the onset and the rhyme a lot more fluid and automatic. So when they see the word, I want them to be able to see, boom, the rhyme really quickly, and I want them to be able to really quickly place it in their column and have that automatic, because that's what we want when they're reading and they're writing. Now, as I'm sure you can tell, the benefits of this activity are many. Students are beginning to recognize, you know, repeated spelling patterns. They make associations between what they saw on the cards and seeing the spelling of the word, but also hearing the phonemes as well. It also allows them to try and practice spelling longer, harder words. So, you know, let's say they're writing in their journals and they want to write a word like trademark. I don't know what they would be writing about, but anyways, let's say they want to use the word trademark. Well, it's my hope that through this practice and repetition that students will be able to sound it out in their heads, and they would be able to just try and write that bigger, longer, multisyllabic word down through this sorting activity. Again, this game was adapted from the activity that they have suggested here in this phonics resource. Again, this resource is called Month by Month Phonics. I have the grade 3 version. I think it's the 2nd edition by Patricia Cunningham. If you can grab your hands on a resource, even if it's the 1st edition, if you can grab your hands on it, I highly recommend it. You will not regret it. I know on Amazon it can go upwards of $80. I do not recommend spending $80, but if you can get it for somewhere between like, I don't know, 30 to 45 Canadian dollars, this is a Canadian YouTube channel, I highly recommend that you grab it. You will not regret it. So the game that I have is adapted from that game. If you're wondering where I get my list of words, where do I get my chart, all of that, it's all in this resource. So I can't share those word lists with you because that would be copyright infringement. But I do recommend that you grab yourself this resource. If you can't, all you would need to do is really think of, 5 guide words that all have a like a phonics goal in mind. So in this activity, the lesson is on R controlled words, and they each have a vowel, a different vowel, and then you would have to come up with a list of short words to read, short words to spell, long words to read, long words to spell. So it would take a bit of time, which is why I recommend just purchasing this book to save you a bunch of time. Again, just a reminder, if you are interested in grabbing my free ELA schedule where I talk about how I divide up my ELA lessons for the entire week, you can head over to my website at threepeaksclassroom.com/ELA schedule. You can grab that for yourselves. And as always, thank you so much for engaging with my content, whether it's here on YouTube, commenting on my videos or liking them or even subscribing. I really appreciate that. Or whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, maybe you're joining in on my weekly conversations on Instagram, and I have Insta stories and I have polls and I have question boxes and all of that. I really love engaging with each and every one of you. So thank you very much for engaging with my content. Have a great day, everybody. I will catch you in next week's episode where I talk about the 3 scariest moments of my teaching career. Spooky. Awesome. Hope you're having a great day. I'll see you next time. Bye.